inflation, Mr. President.
Yes, yes, yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
What? What in the world? No. So the inflation, the idea that, well, does inflation, yeah, it's solved. It's all good. Inflation's fine. It doesn't sound fine. By the way, did you guys see this interview? Where's this at? This is audio sound bite 14. It's a woman in Philadelphia. This is not a laughing matter to her. There's no joy in this for her. Listen to what she says about inflation.
How hard has inflation hit you?
It hit me hard. It's hitting me hard.
What do you blame for it?
I blame the federal government at this point. If a working class mom who works as a paralegal cannot buy a $2 bell pepper because it's now $5, imagine a mother living on food stamps. Imagine a mother who's making minimum wage trying to feed children. They're killing us without killing us.
That's an ad. Killing us without killing us. It's not, this is why this stuff isn't funny. You know, you see them come out there and they're like, they say, well, it's cooling. It's not cooling. That's such an insult. It is such an insult. Inflation isn't cooling. It hasn't reduced. It hasn't gone down. People are broke. They are absolutely broke. And you got this one ticket talking about more taxes. I mean, they've been, you know, the Harris-Walz ticket. I mean, remember, taxpayers were already exploited to mask the Medicare premium hikes before the election. And that was all in that, again, Inflation Reduction Act. Kane, who was the deciding vote on that again?
Oh, that was Kamala Harris, the vice president.
Correct. Kamala Harris, vice president. The rate increases, you're going to see people, they're tripling costs. Add that on top. Add that on top of inflation and everything else. In fact, it was reported that it was supposed to cap out-of-pocket drug costs for Medicare beneficiaries, and now they're going to hike monthly premiums with average bids for Part D plans expected to triple by next year. Now, remember, they had to spend billions. They had to borrow some money and move some money around because they were looking at EV stuff. Don't forget that. Now, that's on top of everything. So it's getting the people who are at the older end of the spectrum. It's getting the people at the younger end of the spectrum, the families trying to put food on the table, trying to keep, we're getting ready to start a school year. And, are parents even able to afford to get their kids everything that they need to go back to school? I know there's all these back to school drives and stuff like that, and it feels like there's more than ever. It needs to be more than ever now because of the state of things. What's going to happen in November? Can you imagine? This is what, if you lose in November, you better pray to God that you keep the House. Otherwise, get ready to lose everything. Not kidding. Has anybody else been having the discussion like what happens if, Democrats gain control of the House and the White House? And then even if they just keep this, pretty much even division in the Senate, you know how tough that's going to be? If losing the White House and the House, you just best hope that the numbers are small enough that it just creates gridlock. Because I'm not kidding you, it's going to be bad. Who knows how many more stations we'll be on? What's going to happen if Soros decides to flex his muscles with some of the stations that he's been buying? Nobody knows. Everything is up in the air. And that's what we're all looking at. That's all staring us down in November. So we laugh and, we make, because it's all you can do. It's so insane. I want to point this out as well, because I wrote about this last night over at Substack. If you get the newsletter, I have a piece out about this. It was about that soundbite that we had. And the more I thought about it yesterday after the show ended, the madder I got. Fauci shocked that he was still getting the Wu flu, even though he was infinity vaxxed and boosted. And he was saying it was his third infection, etc. What gets me Because in 21, he went and said, remember, he said vaccinated people become dead ends for the coronavirus after saying that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, right? Big Pharma got to rush out a taxpayer-funded, wholly experimental shot that did more for their profits than actually did for, real inoculation, and prevent the tap public from running dry. Lawmakers sought to mandate the shots annually. We knew all of this. It was all performative. People were arrested. They lost their businesses, all this stuff. It is wild to me that we had one of the greatest acts of government overreach in our history, in modern history, not just United States history, modern history. This is the first general election, the first presidential election since then. And that's not the top issue. This should be the reckoning. This election cycle should be just called the Reckoning 24. This is the first time you are actually getting to hit back during a presidential election, a major election. And we're talking about joy and weird and what? They're doing everything that they can, honestly, both sides, I think, to move around the most heinous overreach of government in the modern era. My mind's blown with this. I mean, you had people who kids fell behind academically. Another generation of older kids missed out on years of normalcy during one of the most crucial periods in their lives. It changed culture and society. And this is not the reckoning for that. I don't give a rat's ass about your weird or about your joy or about anything else. This election should be an absolute reckoning for this, and it's not. People are so fickle. It only took 4 years, didn't it? And then everyone seemed to have forgotten all the hell they went through, right? Your churches were forced to close, and your pastors went along with it. You might have lost your job. Maybe you had to watch a parent die alone because you were prevented from being near them. Maybe your kid flunked or developed some kind of personality issue because they had to be sequestered for a year and a half when we were told 15 days to slow the spread. Maybe it changed you. I mean, I think throwing an actual virgin into a volcano would have done more for inoculation and all of that than the damn jab and all the nonsense that they did in the wake of it. I mean, it's amazing that this is not entirely focused on that. And why? Why? Why is it that close? Are people forgetting that Kamala Harris was the vice president when they were demanding not only that businesses stay closed, but that schools stayed closed? Are people forgetting the fact that they did a $1.9 trillion spending spree that just dragged us into the pits of economic hell? And then their solution to get out of it was to spend more money, hire IRS agents, and go after your tips. While then turning around and pretending that, no, we also don't like tax on tips. You literally created more of them. And greater scrutiny under the bill that presidential candidate on the Democrat side was the determining factor for. The vote that determined it. It was a tie. And the fact that Republicans aren't hammering any of this, what the hell is wrong with you? Golly, come on. We were looking over some of the polls. Am I alone in feeling that? Why isn't this like the reckoning? Why is this not the reckoning? I don't know. Maybe, Kane, people's memories are short. Yeah. Is that it?
That's what Democrats count on.
I know people get tired of talking about it and they want to move on. But you keep getting more of this stuff when people are not held accountable for it. That's the problem. And it's going to get worse. I mean, we were just talking about the Inflation Reduction Act rated, I mean, it stole almost $300 billion out of Medicare for green energy handouts. All the EV stuff, we talked about this, all the EV stuff that they were funding, the green energy, the big green energy, that whole plan that Biden-Harris was pushing, they raided Medicare for that. And now, that's why Medicare is seeing sky-high premiums now. That's why the 2025 bids for standalone Part D plans have skyrocketed to 179%. They are literally raiding from Medicare now so that they can pay insurers to not do anything until after the election because they don't want the boomers to get mad and vote against them. Where's the Republican messaging on this? I mean, where's this at? That's what happened. They're soaring. You have seniors that are already struggling with record inflation. And now this on top of it. So you're having to pay because Democrats took your money to pay for their Green New Deal. That's not an exaggeration. It's not hyperbole. It's God's honest truth. That's what happened when you got the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed because Kamala Harris broke the tie. And Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. So from April of 24, this is data.cms.gov. This is from April 24, 67.3 million Americans enrolled in Medicare. Now, they're all hoping that none of you notice. Just to get through the election. They'll deal with it after they win. But they just want to get through the election right now. So we're going to pay off the insurers to keep them quiet. Let's not spike premiums. Let's not do any of this until after November. And then if Democrats win, then they can have it. But you know what's going to happen? Even if Republicans win, they're going to have to deal with this. You know this, right? Because the money was already taken. So what's the Republican plan to deal with this? Gosh, I wish that J.D. Vance would figure out a way to ask himself that question in front of the press. What is the Republican plan to deal with the Medicare premium spike brought on by Democrats, Biden-Harris, raiding it to pay for their Green New Deal? Well, I'll tell you. I wish he would do that. I wish Trump would do it.
The media would never ask that question.
I know, that's what I'm saying. They got to ask themselves.
So frustrating.
You have to learn how to ask yourself the question that the media is not going to ask you. See, that's the fun with dealing with the press. That's why I wish all these candidates would understand. You don't have to answer what they ask because it's all going to be stupid and dumb anyway. You take the question and you mold it into something that you want to get out there, that you want to answer, like this. No, they're not going to say a thing about it. They're just hoping that you don't notice.